mentioned, we are a really tight-knit neighborhood and it's very condensed. But one of the amazing things about us is we're literally surrounded by industry almost all the way around, if not in a horseshoe, around the community. And in fact, the environmental justice movement was founded or named by a woman on the southeast side, Hazel Johnson. Hazel is the mother of the environmental justice movement, and she actually coined the term environmental justice because in her community of Oakdale Gardens, this was a community that was created specifically for returning veterans from the war, particularly black veterans and their families from the war. And the housing was built on toxic land without being remediated. And it was built with industry all the way around it. Hazel Johnson, her daughter to this day continues to run their organization, People for Community Recovery, on the southeast side of Chicago. And actually, former President Obama trained to be a community organizer under their organization. So I still wonder what happened. But nonetheless, in their case, she recognized that not only were families getting sick living in the housing development that they were in, but they were literally surrounded by a toxic donut. And so she coined the term environmental justice, thinking about the environmental racism that was happening in her community. So if you move just literally a couple of miles northwest, you find our neighborhood, similarly surrounded by industry. But as a community, we didn't necessarily know how it was impacting us, right? So this community, as I mentioned, was Bohemian and Czech and had a migration of Mexican Americans from Pilsen, the neighborhood literally to the east of us. Pilsen was seen as an immigrant gateway into Chicago. My grandfather, for instance, was a train engineer in Mexico, and UPS, what was originally UPS, came down, or the railroad came down and poached him from that rail line and brought him here to work on the rail line. He ended up working for UPS until he passed away. That's how my family ended up in Pilsen first. And when they were able to raise enough money, they moved into Little Village because the apartments were bigger and they could afford to pay a little bit more for their apartment or home. So over time, Little Village started to become the new gateway as Pilsen was gentrified, unfortunately, by the expansion of UIC, the University of Illinois at Chicago. More and more folks and continue to leave Pilsen and come into Little Village, and if not further south and further west into the suburbs of Cicero and Berwyn.